unity conversation, and I'm sure all of you have now heard about the elusive Luhya unity. But let's begin at the late Kijana Wamalwa's memorial on the 23rd and put to you, CS, what do you attribute the failure for either of you, some critics have argued, to rise to the stature of your late brother in as far as being this figure of unity or bringing people together as opposed to the various sub-tribes within the community? What do you attribute that failure to?
I do not think that statement is correct in terms of political stature. I think as we sit here, we are all national leaders, and it takes time to grow leadership. And my brother Musalia, for example, also was a vice president, just like my late brother Mike. My brother Wetangula is a national leader in this country, apart from being a party leader. We know the role he has played in different administrations, myself included. And I believe we're on the right course. Looking at my brother's history, it took him years for him from 1974 up to 2003 for him to become vice president. And if perhaps he had not passed away, he was on course to becoming president. It took years. If you had to just look at 74 to, we believe we are on the right course. We believe, just like any other region in this country, we have challenges we are facing. All we are saying is that we need to look at these challenges together, and I believe the commonalities of the challenges and opportunities make it imperative that we work together. So these are the realities of time that we are looking at together, and the spirit we saw in this anniversary and the fellowship we had together with many leaders, not just from our region but across the country, gives us hope that things are going to change. Yeah. I believe we will get it right.
Right. And Senator, it's been described as a unity of purpose. And we saw the two of you as well, handshake, bury the hatchet. But the concern has been when it has mattered most, you will always pull in different directions. Never had a good track record of really supporting each other as leaders to ensure this one, when this time is, for example, we say we're going to go behind Senator Wetangula. There'll be one who will drop the ball, and it will be a party out there seeking to compromise for their own gains. And that largely as leaders in these regions, you've been culpable. What do you say to that?
That is a malicious narrative that has been bandied around by our detractors. In 2002, our region under the late Michael Malakijana voted as a bloc. We voted for President Kibaki, and in the entire region, only one member of parliament strayed off to another party. The rest were together. So it's not something uncommon or has never been done. It can be done again.
You as leaders supporting each other. For instance, when he ran for president.
It can be done again. There is always a moment in time when people rise up. Shaban Robert in his book Kusadikika said, mara nyingi inji na jamii huwaficha mashujaa wake mpaka janga kuu litokee. We have reached a moment where our community is saying, wait a minute, 60 years since independence, and the nearest we have reached to the leadership of this country is a vice president. And yet we have people with intellectual capability, with stature that is as good as any other, with the capacity to galvanize people, not just in our region but countrywide. Why don't we come together? Eugene Wamalwa and I have been feuding politically since the departure of our late vice president because of party leadership. We have said, look, party or no party, our region needs direction. The previous elections in 2013, Musalia Mudavadi and I were not on the same side. You've seen us working very closely together. We are not working closely together because there's some reward somewhere. We're working closely together because we know it is important, it is necessary, our people want it, and we think it's going to be beneficial. And I want you to also make Kenyans know that the unity we are looking for our region is not just about Luhyas, although we are the dominant community there. In fact, a key player in this process is Governor Sospita Ojamong from Busia. He's our next host for a similar event and even bigger. He has offered that all MCAs must come in, past MPs must come in, and leaders who have not enjoyed electoral leadership but have value to add.
So this is about seeking the presidency. You talk about many years and you've not been able to have one of your own as president. But that propagates that narrative around it's our time to eat. You know, that everyone else is there, we need to get our own there, and perhaps the people of Western will have better lives. Isn't there something
when you
that...
see these three guys...
Isn't there ideas... Will this hold?
Are you saying 100 guys looking for something to eat?
But will... You know what I mean, the book.
Yeah.
But that it's our time, as opposed to selling an ideology that can rally people together, instead of saying we need to get the presidency. That in itself, don't you think, is what sees you time and again not being able to have a nationalistic appeal?
The quality of the question reflects the quality of the answer. You asked us about our unity. If you ask us about our manifesto on what we want Kenya to be, we can give it to you until the chickens come home to roost.
Why is it taking so long to merge your parties, for instance, ANC?
It's a process. It's a process. These are political parties. We must be consultative. We must win over other members who are equally important in these parties for them to see the logic and merit of moving in that direction. And we have clearly said this, that it's a process that we want to participate, and all our party organs must come to a decision on this issue.
What if it gets you to split like the party issue did in this instance?
Now, why are you so pessimistic about our fate?
I'm asking a question because we have seen the past paint a negative picture.
Let's just look at Kenya differently.
Right.
And let me go back to the election of 2002 or even 2007 or something. There was a time Kibaki stood. You had Mukaru Nganga. You had the late Wangare Maathai. You had Paul Mwite. You had Koigi Wamwere. Are you forgetting all this? Here they are, they stood. But at the end of the day, the people on the ground looked and said, amongst all these people who have contested, they preferred to put their weight behind Kibaki. Now, are you going to sit here and argue that because I stood, or because Weta is going to stand, or somebody else is going to stand, that in itself is a manifestation of disunity? It cannot be. It is a manifestation of people expressing their desire to contest.
Now, let me ask you this. Does it perhaps also speak to that the three of you today, in as far as you appeal nationally, it cannot be spoken of, that largely it is in your region? For instance, with you an example, you ran for president, you stepped down twice for Raila Odinga after you declared you'll run. And one would argue that when it came down in those moments to the numbers and the reality, it was that the gravitas of the politician, of Raila Odinga, and the appeal he has not only in his home base, but in other parts of the country, forces, even you in the instance you've stepped down for him, to back him. So what are you doing to build a political stature outside your regions, but also around ideas and not just sugar?
Oh my God. Let me just put it this way.
Yes.
First of all, this is not supposed to be a debate about Raila. Okay?
And it is not. It's a question about extending your...
So we want to look at the country broadly. And I would want us to look at a country in the context of being objective. Our community, because at one stage you used the word patriotic or not being patriotic. Okay? I think what is important here is that can Kenyans reflect and figure out what is positive about the people of Western Kenya when it comes to voting in this country. The positive thing
is that the person of Western Kenya has shown time and again that they are ready to vote for somebody who is not necessarily born in that region. That should be seen as a positive for this country. It should be seen as a quality.
But that's the people. What about the leaders appealing to the rest of the country?
No. It should be seen that way. All right? So that we can also get the other people and other Kenyans in other areas to look at it and say, if this community has shown time and again that they can vote for other people, including people from their regions, they should then reflect and say that that is the true democratic process that we want to entrench in this country, so that we can start veering away from this strong notion that ethnic must be the only goal.
We've seen quite a number of delegations go to the Deputy President's residence. So we're hearing you will be going as leaders there, and the notion and what pundits have opined around those kind of visits, it's that to show backing for the Deputy President. What's your comment on that?
I think that's not correct. The issues touching on the region, as I've said, are issues that the President himself is greatly concerned. That's why he directed us to sit down with the leaders. That's why we had the Windsor meetings. And it's a process that is ongoing. So as we speak, the regulations have been gazetted. So the next step will now be for my colleague, CS Agriculture, to now sit with the stakeholders again before we now go to brief the President. So part of the resolution was that all these matters, all these proposals, the leaders would like to have audience with the President to interrogate them further to get solutions. And it was not about a delegation to the Deputy President's residence, so about meeting the President, and it's work in progress. I believe when the leaders get this audience with the President, we will be addressing the issues. And it's not about 2022. It's about
pledging allegiance.
It's not about pledging allegiance to anyone, but to address the issues facing the region and the nation. It's a crisis we have on our hands, so we can't sweep it under the carpet. But like they say, I think the French President de Gaulle who once said that sometimes war is too serious to be left to the generals. Now the matter of the sugar crisis is too serious to be left to one institution or one region. It is a matter of vital national importance. It's not a Luhya matter or a Luo matter or a regional. It is a national matter that the President himself will address, and at such a time that we all sit, we will be able to address these matters.
So briefly, on the question of the merger between the two parties, some of the feuding that was there politically between the two of you was around Ford Kenya, New Ford Kenya. How do you think this should play out to serve best your agenda now, unity of purpose? Does Ford Kenya swallow ANC? Do they form a new outfit? Who becomes the political party leader? What for you is the ideal situation, briefly?
I think the ideal situation here is the fact that our democracy is maturing. And I believe we have demonstrated going into the last election that our democracy is maturing, almost going to the level of the U.S., where we have two major parties, the Democrats and the Republicans. We have the Conservatives and the Labour in the UK. Now here, in the last election, we had many parties. I was a party leader myself, New Ford Kenya. Deputy President Ruto was party leader, URP. The President was party leader, TNA. We all came together. We are saying we want vehicles that can carry national aspirations, that can remove tribal parties or boundaries. And NASA, we had UDF, Ford Kenya, Wiper, ODM coming together. And these formations are actually what we should be celebrating, the maturing democracy in our country. So even as Ford Kenya and ANC are talking, I believe it's in the same trajectory. They are moving in that direction, and it's not about them joining to create a Luhya party. It is about maturing our democracy and looking at issues not based on tribal lenses or tribal parties.
We've talked about the three of you coming together, and as we wind up, we have about 5 minutes or less. I want us to speak of the Building Bridges initiative. And you have been critical of how this process came into being. There are those who've described it as a handshake. Your views on how it truly meant the rift, that some have argued just because there was a handshake, it did not mean Kenya now is united and let's move on. There are those who feel issues have been, swept under the carpet. So what for you is the way to go? How more can they engage? How, for instance, should the Building Bridges team go about their work, the task force?
I'm one of those who have said over and over that I congratulate the two leaders for coming together to lower the political temperature in the country. Certainly the meeting between Raila and President Uhuru lowered the political temperature. But that is just like giving painkillers to a sick person. You ameliorate the pain, but you don't cure the disease. Where did we start this tumultuous process? Because of electoral difficulties in the country. We have the TJRC report that is unimplemented. We have the inclusivity question in this country that is on the lips of everybody. We have issues that we all know. What I've been saying is this: superficial solutions to serious problems are not solutions. There's a building bridges initiative. But when you look at even the competences of the membership, I dare say that I don't know if we are serious. That notwithstanding, because whoever they are, they can call professionals to assist them. We want to see a serious commitment and blueprint on how to fix the electoral justice system, how to create serious inclusivity of communities and regions in the leadership of this country, how we fight the scourge of corruption, how we eliminate all the ills that we have. I believe that this country has never had a shortage of people to shake hands. There are many. I shook your hand when I came here. That is not a solution to the problems of this country. We want to see serious engagement to take this country to the dream we all share, that an electoral cycle should not threaten to tear our country apart, neither should it create enmity between individuals, between communities, between regions.
All right. Honorable Mudavadi, you've appeared sometimes to support the handshake, then at other times not quite. Which is which?
I think I'll just pick up from what I've said, that the measure of tranquility that we see as a consequence of the handshake must be lauded. I've said this. But we still want a broad participatory process, more inclusive.
How does that look like?
Right now it still remains very hazy.
What would you propose?
We have proposed a structure that would have been closer to the Boma-style approach, where we can also see how much in terms of public resources are being set aside to facilitate that public participation, so that the outcome is an outcome of broad consensus. All right? So I think we have examples of that. But let's now just look at what we are dealing with here. There's the famous elephant in the room is still there. The IEBC. Honorable Wetangula has just alluded to it. But let me also point out that the news that has trickled out, that the commissioners who had resigned have trooped back to their offices in the anniversary towers. How much more insulting can an institution be to the people it's supposed to serve? Just imagine that. That means there's no regard for the people of Kenya. There's no regard of their own personal integrity. They walked out because they said they did not agree with the chairman. They've walked back in, the chairman is there.
Yes.
Now, we are asking ourselves, why is somebody somewhere playing with an institution that has generated violent reaction in Kenya in 2007, and now some of it also came out in the last election. Yeah. Why is somebody playing around with this kind of institution and playing around with the lives of Kenyans? This has got to stop. Okay. It's a serious insult to the people of this country, and we have to deal with it. As a nation, everybody must come out and say this is not on.
And what has come out of that, as you give us your final thoughts, yes, is that if the president were to accept those resignations, then we're left in a situation where, for the IEBC, that there is no law to be able, or at least mechanism for a committee, of selection committee for the IEBC officials. So that, as you comment on that, and also the question of the handshake, and whether you agree that it can be broader, more engagement needs to happen than we are seeing now.
I think, first of all, I must thank my two brothers here. They played a role in the first handshake, the Kofi Annan handshake, yes, in February 2008, when we had President Kibaki and the Right Honorable Raila Odinga shaking hands. Mm-hmm. That saved Kenya. We had pushed our country to the brink, but with the help of the international community and with the help of prominent Kenyans, including my two brothers who sat in Serena, we were able to resolve issues and save our country. But the recent handshake of March 2018 is actually a case study in the world. I just came back from Kampala, where we had the Global Peace Awards Conference. And Kenya is being celebrated as one of those countries that is maturing democratically. And other countries, we stand head and shoulders above them, not just as an economic powerhouse, but now also as a political leader in the region. Because of what happened, that leaders, in spite of their differences, can put their country first and resolve issues. But now on our own.
But your brothers here are saying that's not enough.
No, I'm agreeing with them. Yes. I'm agreeing with them that first of all, they have made it clear that they are not opposing the handshake. I think they have been very clear. They have spoken up for a national dialogue that's all-inclusive, which is good for the country. And I believe the issue of making the process more inclusive is an issue that must be considered, because inclusivity is one of our national values under Article 10. So going forward, we are happy that we are all supporting this because it's good for the country. We have seen the Wiper Democratic Movement, Kalonzo Musyoka supporting it, and I believe we are all supporting it.
But they have not expressly come out as parties to support.
I think they have. The issues they are raising.
Not in the fashion we saw Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes, but sitting here tonight, we are all saying it is very important that we move together, we make the process more inclusive, because the issues that are being addressed touch on all of us. It's not what is good for NASA, what is good for Jubilee, but what's good for Kenya. And I think we should all embrace it.
Thank you. I want to give you 1 minute because you had requested to speak to the issue of IEBC. Please, in 1 minute.
Yes, I think my brother Musali has spoken to it, and I just want to record what I think will eventually be the outrage of Kenyans to see that IEBC commissioners can take the country for a ride in the manner that we're seeing, where commissioners go before full view of cameras, before Kenyans, and announce that they have resigned their positions and they have left the commission because the incompetence of the leadership of the commission and the chairman and everything else, and the country has been even wondering how we can restructure the commission to have new commissioners to join, either those who are there or have a completely new commission. Then without shame, without batting an eyelid, these commissioners just walk back, business as usual. The government should not allow this. And I want to urge the president, in fact, by that act alone, to set up, as provided for in the Constitution, an investigation into their competence, even to be commissioners, as is required in law. So that, because, you know, our history informs us that if we don't have proper elections that give results that people accept, like 2002, our country starts shaking.
Starts heading to the precipice.
And we must move away from this.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. We'll wind it up there. Gentlemen, thank you so much for making time to be with us.